hotter than Venus? Is it hotter than Virginia?
This show's going to be hotter than Venus, I guarantee you that.
I think you're talking a little louder than normal. Is that your radio voice, or is that...
That's my puking voice. No. It is time for another Relationship Rhombus Show, where we field your relationship questions that come in through either Patreon, or some people even email them to me. Either way, as long as you say, yeah, I want it for the Relationship Rhombus Show, we'll get it where it needs to go. That's the bottom line.
Hashtag Relationship Rhombus. Pretty sure that one isn't used already.
Nope. So, all right. How about we get into these questions, Stephanie? What do you say?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I love Relationship Rhombus. I was excited to do this. I suggested we do it.
Yeah, we're doing a bit of a car cast, so if you hear some traffic noises and things like this, that is why. But, all right. Well, let's open it up with a fun one.
All right.
I significantly shortened this. Though maybe it would have been humorous to have the whole thing. But is there such a thing as jerking off too much or jilling off too much? If you're in a relationship...
I like how they made it genitalia neutral there.
Yeah, that was they did use that wording.
Yeah.
So, of course, for those that don't know, you are being joined by Stephanie and Brian.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Yeah, the Golden Stallions.
I kind of doubt this was anyone's first time listening to your show.
No, I mean, if they're a patron, they know the score. But I mean, as soon as you're hearing about jacking off and chilling off, you know who's here. So let's see. If you're in a relationship,
we didn't ask the question. We just answered it.
If you're in a relationship, should you feel a need to jerk off 3 to 5 times a day? Is it in any way unhealthy? Like I said, I really kind of pared that down a bit because it got kind of graphic.
Were there pertinent details that you left out? Okay.
No.
Okay, it was just gratuitous, describing their jerking off 5 times a day.
Yeah, you know, using towels and whatever else. So, anyway, so this is actually like 3 questions in one.
Okay, so the first question is it normal or is it okay to jerk off?
No, is there such a thing as jerking off too much?
Okay, is there such a thing as too much masturbation?
And I think that kind of plays into like the third part, which is it in any way unhealthy?
Right, okay.
Because that's really asking, like, is it unhealthy to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, initially, jerking off, go ahead, it's fine. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But, so what do you say, Stephanie? Is there such a thing as masturbating too much?
Yes, but
but
that's not for us to decide. It's for the question asker to have some self-awareness and decide for themselves. And the way you know when it's too much jerking off or too much masturbation is very easy. It's if you're neglecting or disrupting other things in your life that you need to take care of. If you haven't filed your taxes because you've been too busy jerking off, if you haven't done your homework or done your work because you're too busy masturbating, if you forget to eat and drink because you're too busy masturbating, if you feel compelled to masturbate in ways that rope other people into your masturbation that didn't consent to it, like if you feel compelled to masturbate in public, for example on a bus or something, or on an airplane. I doubt anyone would try it on an airplane these days, but you never know. I mean, there's some videos that circulate on YouTube. But if you feel compelled to do it in situations that are dangerous or that are hurtful to other people because they might expose somebody to your masturbation who doesn't want to see it, and in fact, if that's part of your kink and if you get off on that, then it's unhealthy.
Okay.
Then it's unhealthy. If it's interfering with your vital activities or if it's hurting other people, then that's when you know it's unhealthy.
Okay, all right, yeah, I think we've kind of covered like that kind of ground before in Relationship Rhombus shows. I mean, do you feel like there's anything what about biologically unhealthy?
Oh no, I don't feel there's anything biologically unhealthy.
Like if you jerked off, not even in a relationship, we'll get into the relationship part, but like what if you jerked off like 6-7 times a day every day?
If you're financially independent and you have free time enough to jerk off that much, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it from a physical standpoint. You might get a little bit sore,
okay.
But if you're up for keeping going, like yeah, have at it, right? There is this idea in like Chinese medicine or something that men lose life force when they
that's
blow a load. Yeah. I don't really buy into that. I think it is important to clean the pipes, and in fact, there's research that shows that people who ejaculate, or men who ejaculate, people have prostates and penises, blah blah. Not necessarily men, gender thing.
Sure.
But anyway, people who have the equipment who ejaculate frequently, or frequently on a relative basis, are less likely to get prostate cancer. So there is something to be said for cleaning the pipes, and I think it's backed by evidence. So I don't think there is an upper limit.
I remember
biologically.
I remember reading, I think it might have been an issue of Cosmopolitan or something. It was like My Sister's. And I remember reading in it the guy talking about jerking off. Mm-hmm. And, well, I mean, what the hell? It's a Relationship Rhombus Show, so I'll get a little personal.
Uh-huh.
Like, I didn't really jerk off until after I had sex for the first time.
Oh, because then you had something to jerk off about.
Well, it wasn't exactly that. Because it wasn't like I wouldn't try to inspire boners to myself. Because, like, my older brother, he would tell me that, he'd say, hey, Brian, this is when I'm, like, way younger than I should be hearing about this sort of thing.
This is what happens when you have older brothers,
yeah,
I guess.
But he's telling me, he's like, hey, Brian, he's like, you want to know how, he's like, girls really like big dicks. You want to know how you get a big dick? You keep giving yourself a boner, okay? It's like, and then it's like, while you're growing up, that'll get you the big dick. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever you say, Walt, that's fine. And so admittedly, like for a long time, like I worked on getting myself boners, and I could go into like other details, not about the boner itself, but like, because I wouldn't do anything physical, but anyway, I'll save all that for another point. But
folks, it worked.
Well,
just in case you were wondering.
Hey, I didn't say it. That's all I'm going to say. I didn't say it. Ooh, okay.
Not sure if I should be thanking your brother or trying to have words with him.
Yeah, right.
But it definitely worked.
All right.
Something worked.
So, where was I going with that? Okay. No, I know.
You didn't jerk off.
Yeah. So I had sex at 14. Like that was the first time I had sex. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even until like even really after that I even thought about jerking off. Because like I don't know, you hear all these different stories about how it's bad for you or something like this, and so I kind of bought into it until I was convinced otherwise.
What specifically did you hear that it was bad for you? Like, what did you hear, the hairy palms thing, or that it would make you go blind?
Yeah, I don't remember which. Like, it was just a bunch of different things.
Did you believe that it would cause something bad to happen to your body?
I don't even know if it was that. It might have just been like
spiritually defiled.
No. It might have just been like people in school saying, "Oh, you had to go jerk off." Like that was.
Oh, that was
like you were a lesser person because you weren't having a gal get you off. You were having to jerk off or something. It might have been
a lot of pressure at 14.
Well, hey, I mean, but it was
not
it was
many
something
people
like
have
that.
A regular sex partner in middle school.
Right. But I remember reading years before then that like this story out of Cosmo, like a day in the life of a penis, pretty much.
Oh.
And the guy or supposedly the guy that wrote it said in it that. And this kind of weirded me out. He said it's good to clean the pipes like once a week, pretty much.
Okay.
But it sounded like the way he was describing it, and this is only Cosmo. Only Cosmo would schlep around this kind of bullshit. It sounded like it was saying that like the shit turns green or something.
Oh my god.
Like because he's saying it's like to keep it fresh. And I'm like, well. What's going to happen to it? Like, is it going to it's going to turn into something?
It's going to turn into sludge.
Yeah, right.
It's like when they say that you need to do a colon cleanse every few years because you have like 25 pounds of shit stuck to the inside of your colon.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would never even reading that at a very, very young age. I still didn't do it, probably because I didn't know how. But regardless, I mean. I think all right, enough of that. But that's the kind of bullshit that gets out there and that's been out there as far as like the nonsense of why you should masturbate or why you shouldn't. But the human male can ejaculate or can produce millions or billions of sperm every 5 minutes to an hour.
Oh yeah.
So I've always used that little factoid.
Stored in the balls, right next to pee.
Right. I've always used that little fact. Yeah,
Just
right.
Kidding. Just kidding. A pee is not stored in the balls, okay? I'm just referencing a meme that's been going around.
Yeah. So, but I've always used that little factoid to say, look, you're designed to come a lot and often. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, not that you have to, but that you can. You are physically capable to do that.
Yep.
And some people can get back in action inside of that 5 minutes or less, or some people it takes the hour or more. I mean, shit, those are just averages. So, yeah, I don't know that there's any such thing as like biologically too much.
Yeah.
Like that you can do it too much.
Now, from my end, I guess I probably heard some stuff about masturbation, and just women's bodies get shamed a lot anyway.
Sure.
But I didn't really buy into it. I was like, no. I know this is an amazing source of pleasure, but it took me a long time to figure out how to have an orgasm. And I was on a quest to find it for years. And then I finally did at like 17 or 18.
Then you found the devil's doorbell.
I did. I found the devil's doorbell. But it took me a while to figure it out. And so I don't think I ever verged on masturbating too much. It was more like, it was kind of a late, slow bloomer.
Sure.
And I guess, throughout my life it's been kind of flexible. Sometimes I'm more horny than others. Sometimes I have a partner. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have more than one partner. Sometimes, et cetera, et cetera. So my masturbation varies. But it's all good. I don't think it's unhealthy, I've never had the experience where it was like compulsive, I guess, or it was endangering me.
Right.
So, so there's that. That's been my experience.
Okay. So, yeah.
So, now the person also asked...
Well, hold on, before we get into that. So, this is something where I wouldn't begin to ever use the phrase women have it easier for just about anything. Like,
okay. I sense a butt coming.
Well, I'm just... No, not a butt. Just the one thing that can happen, I think, if you jerk off, that can happen physically, if you jerk off too much, is... you might have a harder time getting a boner when it's needed.
Oh, the refractory period.
Yeah. And... I mean, so if I say, and this has happened at points, like if I jerked off twice in a day, or like 3 times in a day, if I'm then going to have sex, it can take me longer to come.
Right.
If I've already jerked off previous throughout the day.
Some people do that on purpose, like in preparation for a big date or something.
Right, absolutely.
Types.
Yeah, getting the baby stuff out of the way, whatever. So keep that in mind. The reason I compared it to women is that, women don't have to have a physical sign of preparedness for sex, right?
Well, they don't have an obvious
one.
From the outside, but yes, they do still have erectile tissue that gets engorged. Right. And certainly you want to look for, wetness, things like this. I mean, it's not that women don't have signs. So, but it wasn't a butt. It was just keep that in mind. They're just not visible through clothing.
Yeah. So it's one of the things.
Dance floor, grinding up close.
Right. It's one of those things because, like, honestly, if I could really have like an erection on command. I mean, it's probably a good thing that I can't because I don't know how much I might jerk off in a day. No, I'm kidding. But I'm just saying, because that's not really an issue. I'm just saying that, like, I would happily have sex, PIV, penis and vagina sex, without needing to come, as long as it could get erect at any moment. You know what I mean? Like, I take as much mental joy in the act as I do, almost as much as I do in the physical action of coming and, the pleasure that comes from that.
Ah, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, anyway, so I wish, like, that my body didn't have to have so much of an obvious sign of whether or not, what my actual, where my mental space is at.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Now, the next part is, and maybe this kind of segues, if you're in a relationship, should you feel a need to jerk off 3 to 5 times a day?
Well, I would say that could be fine, depending on a lot of factors. Well, one is, how do you feel about it, and how does your partner feel about it?
Sure.
Does your partner complain that you don't have sex with them, even though they want it, because you're constantly spent from all the masturbation you do?
Right.
Does your partner feel jealous of you masturbating? Maybe because they're not getting as much sex as they want? Do you feel that it's a problem? Do you wish that you could get in the mood with your partner more, but maybe you have something that holds you back from being able to come with your partner, and so instead you masturbate and you get your rocks off that way? Like, how do the both of you feel about it? And are you satisfied with the partner sex that you're having?
Yeah, the part that wasn't in the email that is maybe the most important bit of information about this, particularly, is whether or not you're still having plenty of sex and, like, everybody's satisfied sexually.
Or having sex at all. I mean, some people are in marriages or partnerships where it's like one person discovers that they're asexual, or they have a health problem where their sex drive just goes down to 0.
Right.
So that could have happened too. I mean, maybe they're not having sex at all, but they're still in a relationship. So
yeah. I mean, something like that. But, like, because you can have the maybe dichotomies, maybe paradigm. No, I don't know. Whatever. You could have the situation where, and I've heard this a lot. I've seen it a lot, where, like, a guy, husband, whatever, will say, "Oh, I'm not up for it. I'm not," like, his wife or girlfriend will ask him, "Hey, do you want to have sex?" And the guy will say, "Oh, I'm just beat. I don't want to do it." And, like,
but he still goes
20 minutes later,
off to porn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
That's exactly what happens. He goes and jerks off to porn. And then I think if that's the situation that's going on, to where you're being offered sex and you're choosing to masturbate more instead, well, then I think you've got to do some relationship work. Something's going on there, if that's the deal. However, if you're, and this is an important thing, I think people have different degrees of libido, of sexuality. Like, I think, some people who are completely alone and want to come can only jerk off like once a day, or not can, but maybe that's all they want, and that's enough. There's other people who want to jerk off 3 to 5 times a day, kind of like what's mentioned in the email here. But not everybody has the same amount of drive where they want to jerk off 3 times a day. I mean, like, one could argue that's more of a hypersexual, and I don't say that as a derogatory thing at all.
Just higher on the spectrum.
Just higher on the spectrum, right.
Yeah, and that can, of course, vary at different ages and different times of your life,
Sure.
and different health statuses and everything like that.
Sure, right. So, if you need to jerk off 3 times a day and you're still having, like, sex very often, and it's not hindering that, then, there's nothing wrong with...
What's the problem? Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with feeling the need to jerk off more. And, I mean, this is important, too, is that sex isn't all PIV. I mean, I can edit this out if you want, Stephanie, but, I mean, sometimes, well, we don't have to say for ourselves, but couples, relationships, could just lay in bed and you could masturbate together.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, right.
If you're not in the mood for a full-on whatever, you just want a quick thing and go to sleep.
Right, or if your body really is that tired, but you're both there together and you just masturbate.
Oh, that's great.
There's
Maybe talking dirty to each other, or watching each other. That's really fun.
Oh, yeah. Or, you could kind of, like, just lightly help each other out.
Totally.
A guy could play with her breasts, or a girl could play, or, gal could play with her breasts, whatever. I mean, and back and forth.
Yeah, there's always a part that could use some stimulation.
Some stimuli, yeah. So, should you feel a need to jerk off 3 to 5 times a day? I mean, that depends. That depends on the person.
Right.
And also, some people have different, like, in their relationships, you have different, say, workflows and work schedules. to where maybe you have the time to come a couple extra times a day or something.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as long as everybody's still satisfied sexually, I don't think that there's anything wrong with feeling a desire to jerk off or jill off or whatever at any given point. I think that's totally fine.
Now, some partners get jealous of their partner's masturbation habits, and there's all kinds of different versions of that. Some people are like, this commonly happens with heterosexual couples, for example, where the woman is mad or hurt that the man keeps jerking off to porn.
Right.
And maybe doesn't pay as much attention sexually to her as she wants. But the porn does it. And there's a reason for that. It's because porn is meant to be super overstimulating, and sometimes it just sort of raises the bar to where a real life partner, it's not that exciting. There's not as much novelty, and there's like neurological wiring that is behind that.
Sure.
Sometimes it's a man who's jealous of a woman who's masturbating and says, whoa, come on, you're saying I don't satisfy you? Right? Why do you feel the need to use that vibrator?
Uh-huh.
Are you saying I'm not enough of a man, to really satisfy you? Or, what are you doing with that toy? It looks like a dick. I thought the only dick you wanted was my dick, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to disparage somebody who feels that way, but that's the arguments that you hear getting made sometimes.
Yeah.
Where they feel that it's a competition to them, even if the toy doesn't really even look like it could be purple, it could be, this is why they make sex toys that don't look like a penis necessarily, like dildos that don't look like a penis, because it supposedly is less threatening to male partners of women who might want to use them, and of course this can happen in gay and queer and lesbian relationships too. So there are those situations. I guess the only thing I can say about that is that before you get into a relationship with somebody, you might want to have a conversation about their attitudes about masturbation and about your habits and sort of how they would feel about you masturbating, if it's really important to you to be able to continue to have a healthy solo sex life while you're in a relationship.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that because this is here's a bit of a landmine that you can run into with masturbation. And that is, obviously, when you're masturbating, generally, you're gonna go and access your spank bank, right? You're gonna go and access your memories or create some kind of fantasy in your head, some kind of visualization, to help get you off or something. If you're in the situation maybe where you're actually masturbating together in bed. Or if you're doing it alone, but your partner knows that you're going to do it, I think it can be a little risky. And I think, speaking about having conversations ahead of time about masturbating, I don't think you're required, if he or she asks, so what were you thinking about? Mm-hmm. I don't think you're required to say. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't ever mind saying. I have no worries of whatever I'm thinking about, but then, you and I, Stephanie, aren't exactly monogamous, and it's kind of acceptable if other people are thought of or things like this. Even in monogamous relationships, it can be acceptable.
Well, there's a couple of different ways you could ask that question.
Uh-huh.
Don't make it about us, but...
Oh, no. I'm not making it about us, because, we usually don't even ask.
Right. But there's a couple of different ways I can envision somebody asking that question.
Uh-huh.
One is, so, what were you thinking about?
Yeah, right.
I want to hear it because it turns me on.
Right.
The other one is, what were you thinking about?
Yeah.
you better not have been thinking about somebody
else,
right? So it depends on how the question is being asked. I could see it being a trap, but I could also see it as being a launching point for sharing your fantasy with your partner.
It could, but if one of the partners is a very, shall we say, jealous person, mm-hmm. or has concern, if it's somehow not with the person that's asking. Mm-hmm. You could find yourself in trouble. And I think, in my opinion, I think it's a good idea to say, like to have a conversation about that, and be open about it. But sadly, I think for a lot of people, it might even be tough to just to have that conversation, because even having that conversation, even opening up that can of worms, is doing just that. It's opening up a can of worms. So what? You're going to think about this woman, or you're going to think about this guy, or you're going to think about this, And for in conventional relationships, that could be a very serious no-no. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could. Or it could be something that you both realize is restricted to fantasy only, and then you can feel safe to explore some things you wouldn't want to do in real life.
Which I think is the way to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's certain people being able to recognize the freak inside, and not everybody wants to do that,
Mm-hmm. That freak can be a little scary sometimes.
But that said, I just want to say,
it can be freaky.
Yeah, there's, we don't need thought police, and I don't think anyone's necessarily required to, to reveal what that is. But I think if you said, well, I don't want to say, that's going to cause its own problems. I don't know. Anyway, just something, I think that's something people should talk about. I didn't think about it until you were just talking about, having conversations about masturbation habits ahead of time in a relationship. And I was like, well, that's something you might want to, work out. So as far as, is it in any way unhealthy, to need to jerk off during a relationship? I think we already answered that part.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as how many times a day, what's biologically healthy, I think we answered that too. So
here's one more trap.
Yeah, sure.
I think we should mention. I think it's unfair of somebody who's in a monogamous relationship, like marriage or something, to not have sex with their partner and also expect their partner not to masturbate. That's just almost like a BDSM thing of oh, no, you can't come.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely.
I mean, would you rather have them masturbate or cheat on you, right?
Right.
Some people do consider masturbation cheating, but I don't.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, I mean, at some points in people's lives, sex drives can go up and down.
Yeah.
And if it's down, yeah, I agree. I mean, let your partner go do the business. Go masturbate or whatever. And yeah, absolutely. So, okay. Any other thoughts on that, or we can move on to the next question?
But if your partner doesn't like seeing you masturbate or knowing about it, then be discreet.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the bathroom.
Yeah.
So, long showers.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for the next question?
Oh, yeah.
So I think this is actually a sequel comment to a question that I got into a Sovryn Tech Prime episode that I did talk about in a recent Sovryn Tech Prime episode. And the question into the Prime episode was, have you ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't?
Oh, I remember that question.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
So I honestly, I wouldn't mind hearing kind of your response to that. I mean, my response in the Prime episode was that there's kind of no such thing as falling in love with someone you shouldn't, because you can love the whole world. The problem is, or where the problems can arise, if there are problems, is in your actions. Then if your actions are like, if you go stooping somebody that
is married to someone else.
Yeah, is maybe married or something like that. Well, then you're going to run into some shouldn'ts, perhaps, or into some issues. But as far as loving somebody that's married, I mean, you can do that all day long. They never even have to know, And so the idea that there's someone you shouldn't love, that kind of doesn't exist.
Yeah, just keep those feelings in your pants.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep it in your brain.
Yeah, I mean, and there's plenty of, dare I say, platonic ways to express and show your love.
Oh, yeah.
That, while we're talking about shoulds, that I think should be enough, to put those out there. So
yeah, the question is really vague, but who says you shouldn't, right? Is it society?
Right.
Is it a taboo because of your age or that person's age? Is it a taboo because the person is in a relationship or is married? Is it a taboo because of their gender or sex? Right? Maybe it's gay, right? And you're in a homophobic small town or something like that. Is it a taboo because you're just a bad match for each other?
Right.
Your relationship is unhealthy or something. There's all kinds of reasons why you, quote, shouldn't fall in love with someone. So it's so vague as to be almost meaningless, but I would just say, putting my own twist on it, yeah, I feel that I've fallen in love with people who I shouldn't have. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, in the conventional sense, I admitted that too, that yes, I have absolutely fallen in love with people that I shouldn't have.
Yep.
No doubt. So, anyway, I think that this next part, this was sent in to me just recently, kind of expands upon maybe, I think it might have been a sequel to that question, but I can't tell who sent it. So, and also I keep you anonymous when you ask me relationship questions. Okay, so let's read this. Throughout my life, there have been people I have had feelings for and I never told them. I told myself the timing is off, they don't feel the same way, you're not good enough, etc. I find myself here again. I feel a lot of the same things about why I should keep it to myself. If I say something, I feel like it could ruin what we have now, which is already the best thing I've ever found. I want this person to be happy and have everything they want, and if it doesn't include me, so be it. But that's why I'm afraid to say how I feel, I suppose. We have a casual thing. It's beautiful. I just want to know if I should risk losing that by telling them how I feel. I know you can't even answer this for me, and I'm probably not being specific enough. Sorry. I feel like for once in my life, I need to say how I feel, but also for once in my life, I think the reasons for keeping it to myself are justified, or just realistic. Sorry, this is a mess. So that's the question.
Oh, I really hear the conflict and the confusion in that question. So,
sure.
First of all, just want to say, sorry you're struggling with this, and I think we can understand.
Oh yeah.
Where you're coming from.
Oh yeah.
So, am I hearing this right, Brian? It sounded to me like they have a casual thing, so maybe like a friend with benefits kind of relationship.
If even that.
Okay. Or maybe they're just friends.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And, the truth about friends with benefits, so-called, first of all, I hate the name, because so many people don't treat their friends with benefits even like they would treat a friend.
Right.
They do shitty things to them, and they think it's okay to just use them for sex.
Yep.
Because they're using each other for sex, but really, one person or both people always catch feelings. That's always how it goes.
Yeah.
People fuck for long enough, and somebody gets feelings. That's just what happens. It always happens. So, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the whole casual friends with benefits thing. It's like, be with someone or don't. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could maybe be getting your needs met at a time in your life when you're not ready for a relationship, but is the other person in the exact same situation? Is that fair to them?
Right.
Like I said, they're unstable is really the thing. They're unstable situations because one or both people always get stronger feelings that supposedly interfere with what they've got going on. So, I don't know. I've never found those situations to be particularly sustainable,
Right.
And I think people are kind of fooling themselves if they think they are. But anyway, that's enough of my sort of judgments about it. If you don't want things to change, don't say anything, I suppose. If you think it's, I don't know. I feel like honesty is always pretty much the best policy. Like, it's going to be hard to hide the fact that you're in love with somebody who you're fucking, or just good friends with or something.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard to keep that under wraps, and it might be really painful to you. So, the way you may want to approach it would be something like this. Hey, I know we've been having sex or hanging out a lot or whatever. We're spending a lot of time together. I feel really strongly about you. I think I feel more strongly about you than I did at the beginning, for sure. And it might be stronger than you might realize. And I just wanted to tell you that. I don't have any expectation that you feel the same way. But if you do, let's talk about it some more. And if you don't, just tell me and I'll never bring it up again. And we can just keep on going. I'm happy to have your friendship. That is a gift in itself. And that's really what I care about most.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, the most even-handed way that I would go about would sound very, very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just saying, hey, I don't know if you have space for this in your life. Or the bandwidth or something. But like I have these feelings, and if it's not something you're interested in, my greatest pleasure and privilege is to just continue being your friend, and just be there, with you, for you, all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd be kind of the same gist.
And when you reveal this, like, don't make it like, I have feelings for you, like I have AIDS,
You're right, good point.
Don't, yeah. Oh my God! Holy shit! We just passed by a dude whipping out his penis and peeing on the side of the road.
Like he's just on the side of his car and he's just peeing? Holy shit.
People were beeping and honking at him?
Yeah,
oh my God.
He wasn't even...
That's indecent exposure. He wasn't even trying to walk into the woods.
I mean, there's woods right here.
He could have stepped a few feet into the woods and he would have been camouflaged, but he just whipped it out.
Live to tape, folks. Live to tape.
Wow. That's something Christ. You don't see every day.
No,
that's bold.
That was bold.
Ooh, okay.
All
anyway,
right.
So as I was saying, don't make it this big serious reveal like it's a burden or like they're going to react negatively. Like don't be like, I had feelings for you as though I have a disease or something.
Yeah,
or I have cancer, I'm gonna die.
Right.
Like make it as though like, hey, I really like you. This is a compliment to you. I think you're awesome. And maybe I haven't told you that yet, but this is a great compliment. This is something that I'm happy to share with you, and you should be happy to receive because it's a compliment to you,
Yeah.
And, make it clear that there's no pressure that they reciprocate and that you're not going to be mad if they don't feel the same way, but you just wanted to share it, and if they don't feel the same way, you'll never bring it up again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. In fact, that might be about the way you wrote it to me. I can edit that out if you want, but but anyway, yeah, that's.
Well, I follow my own advice.
Well, there you go, and it can work, obviously. So okay, yeah. The one thing I would say to this, because really the way you put that, Stephanie, was perfect. And that's a great way to go, whether it's a friend with benefits or just friends. If you're just friends and there hasn't been a romantic or a sexual component at all yet, I think that's still the best way to go. Two things. One is that writing it out, I don't know if you want to do that, something that you write out, unless you're used to writing out, deeper stuff like that with this person already. Some people would feel that if you made a reveal like that in text, that some could see that as cowardly instead of saying it to their face. But at the same time, you also have other people. I don't mean to add on to the confusion of the problem, because at the same time, I can see where it's more respectful, where you can give somebody time to think about it, and you're not forcing their hand to tell you right now because you're right in front of their face, saying, hey, I have this attraction or something like that, or that they can have the same time to like react and say, and let you down easy if they want to let you down. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's two ways of thinking on that, but the abstract thing I want to say to this is that I really think one of the world's major problems, and I'm not kidding when I say major problem, is that people don't tell each other how they feel. And
yeah.
Look, I get it, you're afraid of losing what you have with this person. I completely understand that. But at the same time, when you have a passion for anything or anyone, when you have that passion, if you don't have some kind of vehicle to express the depth of that passion, again, this is true for people, this could be true for things, it could be true for all kinds of stuff. That passion has to express itself in some way. And I think that if you don't get some kind of closure or reality check on that passion, it's going to express itself, and it might not be in a very healthy way. And I worry about that with people, and that doesn't mean that like you're going to do something bad. but like your whole life you could just be living with this.
Yeah, you could be regretting that you never said anything.
You could be living like with this ulcer of regret, in your mind, and that's tragic.
And sometimes it's really hard to keep it a total secret. To keep the other person in the dark. Like, some people just can't hide it. Some people are terrible at not wearing their heart on their sleeve, and so she may already know, or he may, or whoever it is that is the object of your affections might already know how you feel or have guessed.
So I feel like...
So you might as well say it.
Right. I feel like it's better to... I mean, there's something to be said for looking for the right time, but you can't look for that forever, because forever isn't a unit of time.
It can be an excuse, sure.
Yeah, it can just be an excuse. I think that, like, it's better to find out... It's better for the relationship, honestly. It's better for it to kind of end than for you to go your whole life, like never really getting to express what what's going on inside in some way. And I mean, sometimes maybe there are things you can do, there are extra steps you can go where you feel that the feelings that you're having are getting satisfaction with the person without telling them, what's going on. Maybe you can do that. I don't know. Everybody's kind of different. But I do think that it's a genuine issue in the entire planet that people don't tell each other how they really feel about things.
Yep.
Positive or negative. This isn't just true for positive things, or loving matters. This can be for matters, honestly, of hatred, of all kinds of things. I mean, we drive ourselves nuts by not saying how we feel, and that so consider that in all of this. So I think you've got that to consider. Stephanie's phenomenal suggestion on how to approach it, if you wish to. I mean, there you go. I know it's a tough spot. I've been there. I know how that goes. And you don't know what to do, and you don't want to lose it. I mean, like, having a little bit is better than having it all. But I've learned over time that it's better to... It's not... You can't love people in slices. It's not better to just have a little bit than none.
The other thing that comes into play here is, like, what is your self-esteem? What is your self-image?
Sure.
What do you think of yourself? Do you think of yourself as being so worthless that when you tell someone you have feelings for them, it's like telling them you have AIDS? Or do you think of yourself as... Do you think of yourself as having a lot to offer to a potential partner, and it being something that anyone would love to be on the receiving end of, that you have feelings for them?
Interesting perspective, yeah.
So think about that a little bit. And if your self-esteem is in the shitter, maybe you ought to work on that first.
Yeah, sure.
Until you feel more confident that somebody would be happy to be on the receiving end of your affections.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, boy, there's a lot I could say on that. But, I mean, another hard part of all this is that so many people are at different levels of emotional kind of maturity, and in much of the world, or even just in the United States or whatever, you have a lot of people who have never even considered genuine self-therapy, working on themselves, developing their emotional intelligence and things like this. I mean, they've just never even thought about it. And they have no clue what they're doing or where they're going. But that person could, at the same time, be, for you, maybe, like, really enjoyable to be around, have fun in life and whatever else. And that makes things pretty challenging, because I don't know, like maybe any level at which you've worked on yourself isn't impressive enough, or it doesn't matter, because again, we live in a society that just doesn't really seem to care much about that, as to where I think personal development is one of the sexiest things that a person can have going for them. But anyway, so anything else on that, Stephanie?
No, I think that's good.
Sure.
I hope it helps.
Yeah, I do too. Good luck. I mean that.
Good luck.
So, okay, let's let's go on. This will probably be the last one. We did have an article too, but I don't know if we'll get to that this time around. There's always next month, and of course, always send in all of your questions through Patreon, or you can send it through contact.zog.ninja. Just let me know it's for Relationship Rhombus, like the last person did. So, okay, here's the question. Would you and Stephanie go through, perhaps even role play, a scenario or two that demonstrates how you resolve conflict and or compromise in your relationship? I'm studying this stuff right now, and you two have the best, quote, marital friendship, end quote, I've ever witnessed. Plus, I could use some tips and lessons from the real world myself.
Wow, that's a good question.
That's a great question.
Pretty personal, too.
Yeah.
So, marital friendship, is that like a technical term? Like,
I don't know, I've never heard that
Are they a
term
psychologist or something?
I don't think so.
Studying to be a therapist?
I think an intelligent person. I don't know, but
okay, they're just
well, I know they're an intelligent
maybe
person.
Just studying for their own knowledge or learning.
Yeah, that might be because this is the thing. Some of these terms, I hear them in like relationship podcasts or in books and things like this, and some of these terms I positively despise. Like if I marital friendship, that's nice. Like I think I can kind of get the gist of it. Yeah, that's
kind of obvious what it means.
Yeah, and I don't have any issue with that. But like some people talk about relationships and they call them containers, and I just want to shit myself when I hear that. Like literally, I'm getting ready for the biggest shart that has ever happened. And I'm going to have to throw out the underwear if I ever hear anybody fucking call a relationship a container again, because that is terrible. Okay, it's not a container. If anything, you do not enclose love like that. Okay, you let it spill out. That container better have so many holes in it if it's going to actually express anything remotely what I consider human love to be under the human condition.
I think the container for a relationship is kind of like the framework or like the boundaries or the rules or the expectations or something. But I'm not even really sure. Like that was on another podcast we listened to that was very jargon laden.
Yeah, and it was so bad. And I'm like, no way. I don't ever want to hear that. But okay, so regardless of the terms, so would you and Stephanie, go through a scenario and demonstrate how you resolve conflict and or compromise in a relationship?
Oh boy. Okay, so I have a lot to say on this.
Okay.
First, just generally, before we go into any role plays or anything like that, I would say that in a great relationship, people say all the time, oh, marriage is compromise. It's compromise after compromise after compromise. Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah,
you
right.
just do whatever she says. Yes, honey, and that'll be the secret to a happy marriage. And those people sound positively miserable when they talk like that. And I really don't think that a relationship has to be like that, where you feel that you're constantly compromising your principles, especially on major things. Yes, there is some compromise involved. Yes, when you're in a relationship, your life is a little bit different than when you're single and you don't have anyone else to worry about or consider.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be like this death sentence, or like a prison sentence.
Right.
It doesn't, like, if you're that miserable making all the compromises that your partner wants you to make, or if they're not reciprocating, I don't know, maybe leave the relationship,
Yeah.
Like, if there has to be that much compromise that you're miserable, maybe reconsider. So I just want to say that I don't think it has to be that way. So I think if you're aligned on a lot of fundamentals, there isn't going to be, it's not going to not be any work, because yes, you have to work on relationships and maintain them. Just
Sure.
like you have to go to the gym to maintain your fitness. You got to work on your relationship in the relationship gym,
Yeah.
but it can be fun. Like, it doesn't have to be misery,
Right.
And it shouldn't be like a slog. Maybe that's not the right relationship if it's just constantly battle after battle of hell in a cell. You kind of knock down, drag out fighting,
Yeah, well, so a couple things that I want to lay out with this. Like, one is that you and I, Stephanie, we have very unconventional relationships. And, like, I feel like to really be able to answer some of this, that would require some explanation on a lot of that we're not going to go into right now. Meaning that, like, you'd have to define, like, all the ways that we differ from conventional relationships. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, why don't we just focus on the ways that we're similar to conventional relationships?
Yeah, we can do that. But
Okay.
but my second point that I want to say is that, the first question you have to ask yourself, as far as, in my opinion, as far as, like, how do you resolve conflict and compromise? Like, you need to be able to answer for yourself. Honestly, you should do this before you get into a relationship. What is love to you? And, don't cue CNC Music Factory or something, if that was them that's saying
I
that.
thought you were going to say, what do I want?
Well, that is part of it. I mean, what is love is a part of what you want. I think anybody that still has the biological function of empathy intact in their body wants love of some kind. But you got to be able to define what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you want to also be able to answer what you want. That way, I mean, the easiest way to resolve any kind of conflict or compromise is to be able to clearly express what it is that you want out of anything in any moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And if you don't want exactly the same thing, are they close enough to where you could meet somewhere in the middle? Are
Right.
they close enough to where one person would be willing to come over to the other side and give in this time if the other person does the same thing later?
Yeah, or can you, are you comfortable enough, and do you have enough trust built up in the relationship where you can do things individually?
Mm-hmm.
And like, whatever that thing may be, because some actions do require a degree of trust, I think. So, so that's important. But you got to be able to answer what is love. Now, love for me, I go by the Robert Heinlein definition. Not that I agree with everything Heinlein says, but I think he hit this one on the nose. And that is, love is when your happiness is intertwined with someone else's. Okay? So love for me, when I'm in love with someone, like, what makes them happy is positively central to my happiness. Now, that doesn't get rid of my individuality. It's not like I become them. Okay? Because, obviously there are things throughout the day I do that only I give a shit about, perhaps. Or, or people go to work, they work individually often enough, whatever that ends up being. But, when it's time for, okay, what are we going to do for fun? What are we going to do with this? Blah, blah, blah. I think you should be able to, if you're in love, you should be able to take a genuine joy in whatever the hell it is that they want to do. Otherwise, is that love? Like, is that even a relationship that you should be in?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, there's times where, I don't know how to put this, where, like, maybe, so in conventional terms, maybe there's things that are like, that's like a girl's night, right? Or a guy's night. This kind of thing can happen with people, depending upon how they feel about these sorts of things. And if you can't take a genuine joy in your lady friend going off and having a girl's night or something,
Mm-hmm.
or vice versa, then there's, something's up. There's a trust issue that's going on, which
Right.
brings the relationship into question.
Yeah.
Or you're not genuinely invested in your partner's happiness, or they're not invested in yours. Thus, there's another relationship problem here. Okay? So, you don't have to take my definition of love as your definition, but I think it's a great one. That,
But I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's great, and because I walk around as a very, very happy person, most of my life.
Yeah.
Because, or at least certainly in the past few years.
Me too, Brian. I love being with you, and I regularly try to do things that nurture you and help you be as happy as you can. And some of those are compromises. Most of them aren't, but some of them are.
Sure.
And you do the same for me.
Right.
So okay, let's give an example. Because one thing that we negotiate a lot about, Brian, and this isn't too personal, so I think it's okay to talk about on the podcast, is time in our schedules.
Yes.
Because we both work at home and we live together, we are together all day, but we're not necessarily interacting all day. We kind of, we kind of wake up and have our caffeine together in the morning. And then we each kind of start our respective work days and go off to our respective offices, and we usually meet for around the water cooler, as it were, at least a couple of times a day, and we check in with each other about how our day is going, and if anything significant happens, we'll rush up or down the stairs to tell the other one about it. So we have a lot of interaction, but we're not necessarily like working together all day. And so, you know, we try to time things. Part of what we started out doing in our relationship from the very beginning was trying to do as many activities of daily life together as possible.
Right.
So that means waking up and going to bed together. That means eating at the same time, eating the same thing sometimes, or sometimes eating different things, but eating at the same time together. Working out together.
Yep.
And usually hanging out together. Even if we're hanging out with a friend, we'll be hanging out with that friend together.
Yes.
But one of the things that's been an issue a little bit sometimes is the workout time. Because if you had it up to you, if you were just alone, I think you would like to work out at maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that right?
This is correct, yes.
Okay.
If not multiple times a day.
If not multiple, yeah.
Yes.
Maybe multiple times a day would be even better. But if you only had one window to do it in, it would probably be around that time.
Right.
Now, for me, I don't really know exactly what time I'd like to work out, but with my voiceover work, the most convenient time for me to work out is a little bit later in the day, more like 5 o'clock p.m. or something like that.
And your hand is kind of forced in this because your voice has a prime time.
Yeah,
and your voice is your moneymaker.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And so, like, that's... Yeah, so continue.
And if I'm working out, I'm not using my voice.
Right.
And so I kind of have to take advantage of that good window of good-sounding voice for productivity. So, yeah, my hand is kind of forced in a way, and it sounds like you understand that quite well. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is we do intermittent fasting, so we only eat once a day, and we want to try to time our workouts. I think, for me, I would like to try to time my workouts so that I'm not waiting a long time to eat after the workout, because I do tend to get pretty hungry by the end of the day, and especially if I've worked out, exercise makes me even more hungry.
Right.
So I like to eat, I like to be able to eat after I work out, and if I have to go back to work after working out, I can't eat right away. So for those reasons, I like to work out around maybe 5 o'clock p.m. And, we had discussed like doing separate workouts, but I really find it helpful to be able to work out together. And like you're almost like a personal trainer, Brian, and it's really motivational for me to be able to work out with you. And plus, it's time that we get to spend together, and it's fun. And we like to listen to the same music most of the time, and we like to do similar kinds of workouts. And so I like the motivation that comes from you, from doing it with a partner. Mm-hmm. And so I want to do it together, but my ideal time to work out isn't necessarily the same as yours. So you basically, we had a bunch of conversations about this. You basically understood and said, look, I have a preference to work out a little bit earlier during the day, but since I understand that it's important to you that we work out together, and I like to work out with you, I'm willing to, do mine at the end of the day too, so that we can be together and do it together. And once you understood that, you sort of made a commitment to check in with me every day about what workout we're doing and what time we're doing, and you kept that commitment, and you've been asking me, and we've been checking in about it every day. So, we went from basically having two different preferences to working out something that works for both of us. Right. And involved maybe a little bit of compromise, more on your part than mine.
Yeah, well, it does. And reason being is that, as much as your voice has a prime time, mm-hmm. every individual has a prime time when they get their best workout.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've come to figure out what mine is, mm-hmm. and those two things don't line up. Mm-hmm. The compromise comes in is that, or the conversation is had, and the compromise comes in where, okay, but my voice is what makes my money. Mm-hmm. As to where my body, while health is, supremely important, no doubt, mm-hmm. I can still get in a workout, and it's not like my livelihood is on the line.
Right.
If I have to wait 2 hours to work out. And that's the thing. But this is the thing. This kind of proves the point about what do you want and all that. You've got to be able to clearly articulate why you want to do something, and then also the other side has to articulate why it has to be, or why for them it has to be this way, or they want it to be this way.
Yeah.
And as long as you can have that clarity of conversation and that absolute precision clarity of why you want this and the importance of it, then it doesn't have to be a conflict.
Right.
And it can, I mean, yeah, there might be a little bit of compromise in there, but it's a compromise not where I'm losing anything. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Or at least it's as close to a win-win as you can get, in certain degrees. That's a good example to bring up.
Yeah. I liked how we did that. And I mean, sometimes, I have trouble keeping to a schedule. The other thing that comes up with our time-related conflicts, is that sometimes I have a little bit more trouble following, like when I say I'll do something at a certain time, I can often get late.
Sure.
I can often lose track of time or just be late because I'm working on something and it takes me longer than I thought. Brian is like very much like a German train. Like, he runs on time.
Well, I wear a watch 24/7. Like, I literally wear a watch 24/7. I've done that since I was a kid. I mean, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, Brian gets annoyed when I say I'll do something at a certain time and then I'm late. And I can see why he gets annoyed, because that is very annoying. I really agree. And so, as part of my compromise, I've agreed to work on that. And sometimes I just have to have sort of a negotiation with myself almost and say, okay, I really want to be considerate of Brian and his time and show him that I care about it. And so, instead of finishing up the thing I was working on, I'm going to either stop what I'm doing and pick it up later and go work out with Brian when I said I would, or I'm going to check in with Brian and say, hey, I need 5 or 10 more minutes, and then I'll be right down at 5:05 or 5:10, and just let him know. So yeah, that's part of something I've been working on.
Yeah, and that is such a great, like when this, at varying points where this has been, a minor annoyance, like I've responded and said, like you understand, and this is the thing, you're hearing, like, you understand me.
Yeah.
In that, like you said, like I'm like a German train, Yeah. And so what you came, like the compromise that we came to in that is that you give me an amount of time that you need more of, and you let me know either ahead of time or at that time, so I'm not waiting around. So because that's fine. Like, what appeases my nature of being strict with time is being told what time. Yeah. Things will be able to happen.
Yeah.
Like that
and there can be an update to it.
Right. That can offset so much annoyance, because because if you say, well, I had to finish this up, this had to go out today, like, of course I'm going to understand that.
Right. Yeah.
The part I'm not going to understand is, or the part that is going to be the annoyance is, like, existing in limbo where I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and again, these are, I think in the grand scheme of conventional relationships, these are probably all very minor things, even though it's what comes up for us. But I mean, we don't have a whole ton of problems in our relationship.
We do have.
I mean, we're human, but we don't really,
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, we do have some more serious discussions than this, but honestly, this has been a thing that's been, like, I guess, an example of a conflict that I think we've been doing a good job of working through.
Right.
But it is like sort of a it's a process, right? Like, it has to be constantly updated and refreshed and maintained. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's tough because a lot of conflict and compromise comes from just, I think, really, it either comes from your inability to clearly express what you want, or it comes from, honestly, you're with the wrong person. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't want to admit to that, because what they also think, speaking of time, is that, well, I've been with this person this long, I don't want to, I don't want to cut ties and, like, you know, lose all. I was in this relationship for 3 or 4 years or something, and I don't want that to just go down the drain.
But maybe you didn't have some important conversations at the beginning.
Exactly.
That could have saved a lot of this being in that situation.
You could have expressed what you want and go for it. I mean, like, a great way to do this is talk about a 5-year plan with each other.
Yeah.
Like, you know, lay out a vision board. Those, I mean, vision boards can get woo-woo, but they can be very useful in and of themselves as long as you don't go, like, you know.
And it doesn't have to be like a serious business meeting of like, okay, where do you see us in 5 years?
Yeah, you don't even need to be
like,
writing out contracts or anything.
But, like, you could tell somebody on a first or second or third date, like, yeah, you know, I really want to travel the world. I think, you know, I see myself, you know, in 2020 or 19 going around to different Airbnbs for at least a year or something like that.
Yeah, and ask them where.
Yeah.
Because, like, make sure that's really, because I think a lot of people would say that. But you want to have that precision. Again, as much clarity as you can get from your partner and that you can express yourself, the better off you're going to be whenever conflicts or compromises occur. So, you know, yeah, ask about that. But yes, yeah, exactly. Things like that. It can be kind of more ethereal.
Right. And it's hard to, like, there's a balance to be found because, yes, if you're having constant conflict that it's really difficult to work through, or if you're feeling miserable because you feel like you're the only one who's constantly compromising and your partner's not, then, yeah, maybe you're not in the right relationship. But at the same time, there are some people who, at the first conflict they ever have with their partner, they're like, oh, well, I guess that's it. You know, like, we can't work through this. Well, no, you can. Try a little harder. Right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
You shouldn't run at the first sign of conflict. A little bit of conflict or something like that is normal. It's just like, how do you... And it's inevitable. It's just, how do you handle it?
Well, and sometimes people just have bad days. I mean, everybody has a bad day.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
I mean, you don't have to take it out on your partner or anything.
No.
But it can affect your ability to communicate, you know?
Yeah.
And a very helpful thing to do, and I will do this myself, is I'll say, look, I don't have the resources to talk about this right now.
Yeah.
Or I don't, like, I need some moments, I don't ever really say I need to be alone. But
but you'll say, like, I need to recharge, I need to get away from the screen,
or I need to process this, or I got to get away from the screen.
I need to process this, I need to sleep on this.
Or even shit, you know, the working out thing. Say, look, I got to go blow off some steam. I need to go work out. I need to go do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's ways to get that stuff out of your system or to process it before it can become a conflict when it never needs to be. And that's an important thing too, is that you got to be able to say to your partner, look, I got to go process this. I need to process this. It's like, yeah, like I recognize that I'm huffing and puffing. Which I do. Okay.
That's hilarious. But you said that.
Yeah. Yes. I recognize that I'm huffing and puffing. I just need to work through this, you know. I just need some time.
So, I'm sorry I laughed through that.
That's
but
all right.
It's just so funny. Folks, we have to explain for the listeners. Brian does this thing which I call huffing and puffing, where when he's frustrated, he will not say that he's frustrated, but he will communicate to me through nonverbal sounds that he is frustrated. He'll start breathing heavily and he'll go and it's like, okay, obviously he's angry or frustrated, but he's not saying I'm frustrated or I'm angry. And then I'll ask him, hey, what's going on? Are you frustrated? And he'll be like, no, I'm fine. And I'll say, well, it sounds like you're frustrated because you're huffing and puffing. And then sometimes he'll start talking about it or something like that. But sometimes sometimes people want you to ask them, you know, they don't want to just start opening up or unloading when you may not be listening or you may not be interested in hearing it, right? So they want you to show that you're interested in hearing what they have to say and that you're curious.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll respond to it like, I don't have the words to express this right now.
Yes.
Like, I'll say that.
That's good.
All those things are huge, huge verbal tools that you can use to get you through, you know, whatever conflict or to keep it from becoming a conflict when it never needed to be, because it really isn't one, or anything like that. So, you know yourself. I mean, like, really, really know, like, I know myself, now, fortunately,
Yeah.
that these are things, these are things that I express. And so, how do you mitigate that for yourself?
Oh, yeah. Knowing yourself is great.
Yeah. I mean, really, really know how you express yourself. Otherwise, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that reminds me of is that sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I'll say to Brian, like, I would like to have you just listen. I would like to tell you about this, and I just want you to listen to me right now.
Yeah.
And that's really helpful, too, I think, because if somebody knows that you only want them to just listen to you and not give advice or have comebacks, like, they can focus on just listening, right?
Yeah, but treat that... Okay, so here's two other things I want to bring up quick. Absolutely. Treat that listening part, though, as the default when someone starts expressing a problem. Because problem-solving mode that a lot of guys want to get into, I mean, women too, but definitely a lot of guys, may not be what's helpful. And in fact... just consider, like, say when you're going to go buy a computer, how many data points do you collect about that computer before you pull the trigger and buy? You know what I mean? Sure. Consider how many data points do you feel, I mean, like, and then consider somebody, a human being, the most complex thing in the world, or in the universe, to, like, how much data should you have before you even dream of trying to solve what's going on with that?
Right.
Right? You want a lot. You want a whole hell of a lot. And so
you have to listen.
Listen for a while, because there might be a lot of things that are being said underneath that, that you can pick up on that aren't actually what's being said. Mm-hmm. Like, you really want to listen, to that.
Yeah, and listening can include asking questions, too.
Sure, asking questions
way of showing that you're listening.
Yeah, and repeating back, giving empathy. Like, that's really important. Let me tell you another one. This is my last one. Okay. Of how to resolve conflicts and conflict and get into compromises, whatever. Do not. I cannot even really think of the moment that if it's a conflict between you and your partner, do not raise your voice for anything.
Yeah, that's
you
a
do,
great
and
one.
if you catch yourself doing it, stop, reset, apologize. Say, whoa, I am sorry, my voice just went up an octave. Keep talking. And just be calm. In no way is yelling ever going to help the situation. Now, if you are sharing a problem that you have with somebody else, with your partner, and you get hot and bothered, and you start getting heated up and you start, like, getting really emotional, well, that's fine. Because that's a way to share with your partner, kind of the emotions of what's going on for you inside, and then maybe they can help you. But if you're working out something between each other, don't raise the voices for anything. I guarantee you, that will never help.
Yeah,
it will never ever help.
Escalates the conflict.
Yeah, and it expresses things that may not really need to be there, that may not actually be the reality. But, we've evolved to respond to octaves and sounds in very certain ways. So just keep it even if you can. I mean, as much as you possibly can.
That's a great tip.
Don't raise the voice. There's no point to that.
Yeah, and definitely don't get physical. I mean, that's
that's
an issue
that
I think everybody recognizes.
The only physicality there should be is hugs.
Right.
You know, like everything else is bullshit. Like that's by no means. Like, don't even punch a wall. Like, if you punch a wall, if you see somebody punching a wall, you might want to reconsider who the hell you're with. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Because that is not a healthy expression.
That's a stepping stone to punching a person.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a healthy expression ever, in my opinion. So anyway, Stephanie, do you have anything else on this one?
No, I really like your tips. I mean, I guess just my biggest one would be keep it in perspective and remember this is someone that you like or love and you want to work it out with them. So treat them kindly and try to see their perspective and try to help them see yours.
Yeah.
And just remember that you love each other.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's at that stage.
Yeah, or at least like each other.
Yeah. So, anyway, I think that about
does
it for this
another
relationship
relationship rhombus. That was like a triangle because it was 3 questions.
Yeah, this one's a little bit shorter than we usually do, but anyway.
Well, that was great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah,
no, my pleasure as always, Stephanie, and you will be on again. Boy, actually, the episode. Well. What did somebody call us? The trio of tomorrow? But the episode that you will be on again and that Ellen will be on again, maybe you'll be on. You were on in March. You were on like 3-4 times. Or like 3
Good.
times.
I love
it was
to be
great.
on.
But that episode will come up probably in pretty short order here again. So, and I know people love it. You know, you're absolutely brilliant, love. So
awesome. Thank you. Thanks
All right.
for having me on.
Yeah. So more Patreon content to come out. I think even in March when this finally gets released. So I will see all of you on the other side.